Call the meeting to order for the Burke County Board of Commissioners here at Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody this morning. I'll remind everyone to please silence their mobile devices, which sometimes I forget myself. And I would ask all speakers to activate their microphones before speaking or making motions for the YouTube recording. So if you approach up front, please make sure the red light is on so you can be heard from those watching on YouTube, please. Madam Clerk, at this time, I'll do a roll call. We have Commissioner Burns in attendance, Vice Chair Britton, Commissioner Carswell. Commissioner Smith is absent, but that's due to illness. We have our county finance officer, our county attorney, and our county manager, Madam Clerk. At this time, folks, I'm going to ask Commissioner Burns to lead us in our invocation. If you'd please remain standing, I'm going to ask our county attorney, J.R. Simpson, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after that.
If you would pray with me. Father, we love you and we thank you for this opportunity to come together tonight to be about your business. We thank you for all those who chose to come out. We thank you for those who chose to speak tonight. And God, we're just grateful for our first responders and everything that this meeting is going to represent. I thank you for our county manager and staff. Lord, we're just beholding to you in all things in Jesus' name.
Amen. Please join me in pledging the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, gentlemen, that'll bring us to item number 4, approval of agenda. As you can see, gentlemen, the agenda has been amended. What is the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I move the agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with an uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carried 4-0. We'll move on to item number 5, approval of meeting minutes. These are meeting minutes for January 3rd, 2023. That's the Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting. January 17th, 2023, Board of Commissioners regular meeting. February 14th, 2023, Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting. And February 28th, 2023, Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I move those minutes be approved as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carried 4-0. That brings us to presentations. And as I always say, this is one of the most fun presentations we get each month. Animal Service Pets of the Month. We're getting presented by Elizabeth Guthey from Animal Services.
She is our pet of the month. She's probably about 1 to 2 years old. She's really sweet. She's pretty laid back. Sometimes her legs don't work whenever she's nervous, so she's been carried quite a bit today. But she's a good girl. She's available for adoption down at Animal Services. That is Mick Dreamy. He's about 11 weeks old. Absolutely adorable. He's a feisty little kitten. He's so sweet. You guys have to come meet him. He's adorable. Swinging for the Shelter is an event that we're doing next month. It's a softball tournament, and we still need people to sign up for that. So get your teams together, get with us, and let's do some softball to raise money for the shelter. We do an adoption event at Hillman's. This is the first Sunday of every single month. The next one's October 1st. It's from 12 to 3. Come by and hang out with us. We always have adoptable dogs out there. And we're doing treats for Halloween. That is where people can come in and bring treats down for the animals and then receive treats in return from the animals. And that's it. As always, we encourage everybody to stop by and come see our animals and us down at the shelter.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments for Elizabeth? Elizabeth, do you need help carrying Frankie out the door?
Yeah, I got her. I think she will agree to do it. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate what you do. Got to say, gentlemen, that's a first. I'd like to recognize Frankie the dog and McDreamy the cat as pets of the month. I'd encourage fostering and adoptions and encourage spaying and neutering your pets, please. Gentlemen, that'll bring us to the second presentation, National Disability Employment Awareness Month for October 2023. This will be presented by Kay Smith and Andy Carlton, Business Relations Specialist in Vocation Rehabilitation Services. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. It's really hard to follow. Yeah, I mean, precious.
You were able to walk up, so that's
I
good.
know.
Yeah, thank God.
Don't have to carry me out. I'm Sasha Preborn. I'm the facility director with vocational rehabilitation here in Morganton. Also, we are known as WorkSource West. And I have Amy Carlton and Kay Smith here with me. And for those of you that aren't aware, North Carolina Division of Vocational Rehabilitation is a state and federally funded agency, and our goal is to help individuals with disabilities to be able to obtain or maintain employment. And so I'd like to ask a question. How many of you know somebody that has lost a job due to an illness or a physical impairment? Okay, so this is a perfect example. I like to use diabetes, insulin-controlled diabetes, because sometimes people don't think about that as a disability. But what that creates is an impediment during the workday where somebody's having to stop and check their sugar, maybe have a snack during the day. So sometimes VR can step in and help that individual find more appropriate employment. We have a vocational skills training facility on site where individuals are able to come and obtain a certificate for a particular area such as customer service, assembly, woodworking, and once they complete that program and obtain that certificate, then our goal is to help them find employment in the community.
Okay, I will step up next. I'm Kay Smith, and my co-worker here, Amy. We both work with individuals that are deaf or hard of hearing, and we help them with job placement. And that could include helping create a resume, teaching how to appropriately fill out an application, setting up interpreters, and also going to businesses and teaching deaf culture, basic ASL, and just, how to get past communication barriers.
VR also has great internship program too. We connect with businesses and they agree to train individuals that work with us. VR, we pay those interns. We also carry those interns on our liability insurance. It's kind of a win-win for everybody involved. So there are all 100 counties in North Carolina has VR offices. For the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023, our statewide VRR team placed 1,388 consumers in jobs.
So National Disability Employment Awareness Month actually started in 1945. And one of the things that our office is doing this year in October the 5th, we are hosting a community job fair / resource fair / blood drive. So if you know anybody that's looking for a job, or if there's employers here that are interested in setting up a table, please contact us and we will make that happen. So we'd like to ask if there's any questions about our services or what we are able to help do in the community.
You said October 5th on the job fair?
October the
Yeah,
5th.
and we
yes.
left some flyers back there on the
Okay.
table.
Okay, so Kay, you've got those. Okay, perfect. Gentlemen, questions, comments for the ladies?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I've had the distinct pleasure of working with these ladies on projects in the past, and I'm extremely grateful for what you do and the way you've always reached out to collaborate and help, for example, Western Piedmont Community College. You guys were a saving grace for them in some transition that took place a year or two ago. known most of you, I think, forever. So it's really good to see you here.
Thank you. We try to always be a support to the community, and one of the things that we hear is we are a secret, and we don't like being a secret. So the more that we can talk about our services and be able to serve individuals that are in Burke County, that is our mission and our goal. Yeah.
Jim, any other questions, comments? I'll do a fabulous job. Presentation was great. Just out of curiosity, of that 1,388 jobs created statewide, obviously we're a small county. How many, do you know how many we created in the last 12 months? There's always that question.
We usually try to have that statistic, and we just transitioned a new computer system over, so we were not able to pull that, but I will work on getting that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve proclamation number 2023-07.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor of Randy's motion, signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that carries 4-0. And that'll bring us to item number 3 on the presentations. Presentation and resolution of support for My Future North Carolina, presented by Kim Case, Regional Impact Manager, My Future North Carolina. How are you this evening?
I am well, thank you very much. Chairman Moley and Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening and your willingness to join these collaborative efforts with My Future NC. As you know, back on August 14th, I met with leadership from government, business, and education in Burke County, and we met to discuss beginning this partnership with My Future NC to support our state attainment. Here with you this evening are just a slides that were presented at that meeting and then formally at the planning meeting. And I'll ask that you consider adopting our resolution as a county commissioner. So a little bit about us. We are a statewide nonprofit. We were formed out of bipartisan legislation, House Bill 664, with a goal of $2 million by 2030, which means that it is our goal to have 2 million 25 to 44-year-olds who have completed post-secondary degrees or credentials, and that includes short-term credentials, that lead to family-sustaining wages. Family-sustaining wages are defined by our organization as 300 poverty level for our is a cross-sector board formed by policymakers. Yes, sir.
There's nothing I can do about it except restart the sound system, which should take about 5 or 10 minutes or pause. That's not
I'll see if it cooperates. You can do that. Sensitive. It might work, it's the whole system. See, I want to. Oh, so we have double red bars going on this side. So I'll see if I stand back, if that makes it a little bit friendlier. So our leadership for My Future NC at the state level is a cross-sector board of directors that reach across philanthropists, legislators, policymakers, business leaders, education heads. Truly, we do believe in partnerships and cross-sector work. We also have an advisory board of commissioners, and in Burke County, Mr. Jeff Toner, the president of James Machine Tool and Engineering Incorporated, serves as one of our advisory board of commissioners. You may know that North Carolina was voted #1 in business for 2 years in a row for the United States, which is a wonderful accomplishment for us, but it also means that this educational attainment imperative is even more important so that we can maintain that status. We have one of the most robust education infrastructures in the nation. Those are just some dots on the map that show you all of the higher education institutions that we have, including our community colleges. We also know that the minimum levels, education levels for jobs is increasing. If you look at those bottom two bars, high school diplomas, some college and no degrees, the jobs in those markets just are declining. Everything's going to require credentials or higher for jobs of the future to lead to those family-sustaining wages. So we have some challenges. Everyone recognizes the job openings, job shortages that we have now, but we also have some issues with family-sustaining wages. About 43% of our North Carolinians who are in that 35 to 44 age group, so those years when you have families who are children who are really costing money for families, don't earn a family-sustaining wage. We still have about 1.2 million without post-secondary degrees or credentials, and students say that cost is a barrier to why they go to school. They can't go to school. In our K-12 system, when we look at ninth graders and the time it takes them to get to post-secondary degrees or credentials, we have a leaky pipeline of 100 ninth graders who start on this journey to post-secondary degrees and credentials. We have about 28 who finish within 6 years of graduating high school. So that means they'd be about 24, 25 years old, ready to go into the job market without those credentials or degrees. In Burke County, about 27 is the number that we're looking at. And I don't know that I mentioned, but I do work in our Northwest Prosperity Zone, and so that's all 12 counties that surround Burke, 11 that surround Burke, 12 including Burke. And so looking at what we look like as a region is important to us as well. We're a little behind. It seems like most things get blamed on the pandemic. That has put some dampers on the work and folks going to school, and you can see that in our data. But we're making progress, and that's what this effort is about tonight in these collaboratives. We work to achieve our goal in 3 ways. We accelerate action, we monitor and report progress, and we also identify and advocate for policy solutions. And it's important that we have local level voices in those that policy work. We also have a foundational belief that education is the key to economic mobility and prosperity for all. So across the state, I said we work in prosperity zones, that there are 7 other regional impact managers who serve in regions across the state, and we have a very varied background in education, workforce, and so together we make a pretty strong team. One of the pieces of information that you may have seen are our county profiles. These are published yearly. We report to legislature with this data, and it gives a look at about 50% education data, also looks at census, housing, looks at opportunity youth, and then labor market across the sub-prosperity zones. There are 4 key transition areas there. We say cradle to career. It looks like this is slid a little, but it's all right. I'll talk through that. Academic readiness starts at pre-K, and it moves all the way through age 44. These are indicators that have data points on those county profiles, and as we begin this work together, we'll look at those deeper. One interesting piece of information on the profile are opportunities for growth. These, when highlighted, are opportunities for growth in the state, but in Burke County, there are 3. Opportunity youth, which are 16 to 24-year-olds who are neither employed nor enrolled. FAFSA completion, and that would be a means to that education payment without debt, and then transition to post-secondary. So when you get out of high school, how do you move on to the community college? A look at opportunity youth across the state. In Burke County and across our region. In Burke County, opportunity youth sits at about 22%. Digging into the reasons behind that would be something we'd do as a collaborative. One very exciting piece of work in Burke County is the Work in Burke initiative. They participated with us and NC Impact on an opt-in internship program to see about getting those high school seniors back into a job. Businesses work really closely, and they've had 100% in this last cohort of participants who actually are either enrolled or employed. So very high success rate. They're also working on a program called JET alongside these partners for the 19 to 24-year-old group. So really good work happening in Burke County. From 2018 to 21, Burke County was one of our top 10, and I actually do have, and I'll leave this with the clerk, a new handout that was just published last week, so didn't have time to get it to you. But Burke County sits in the top 10 with highest percentage of growth toward attainment between 2018 and 2021 at 5.82%, so good job there. Although our populations are declining across this region, so good work is happening, and it's obvious. So I'll stop here with the slides. There are a few more behind this, but for tonight, I think that explains how we could collaborate, how we're working together now. And I said that we're state-led, but we're really locally owned and driven. If we don't do the work at the local level, it won't happen. So what I'm asking tonight is that as a commission, you take the lead on adopting a resolution to bring together those education, business, and government partners to, first of all, endorse that state goal, 2 million by 2030, adopt the local goal, which I believe for you sits a little over 10,000, and then begin developing a plan. And there's a process that we'll work through, and I can support with those cross-sector partners to develop that plan in alignment with the strategic plan that you already have. So it's not another add-on, it's in alignment. So for tonight, just asking that you join that initiative and adopt the resolution, and then we'll come back together to work.
Thank you, Kim. Great presentation. And I know we have an opportunity to ask you a lot of questions in pre-agenda. But gentlemen, any other questions or comments? Cindy? Not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to receive Kim's presentation on My Future NC and adopt resolution number 2023-17.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carries 4-0. Kim, thank you. Great job.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Yes, ma'am. Gentlemen, that brings us to presentation number 4, EMS Department Employee Recognitions and 50th Anniversary, presented by Jason Black, our EMS Director. Jason, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Doing great. Happy to be here. We'll start off with employee recognitions. This is really important to show the community what we do. The first 4 is where we responded to a patient in cardiac arrest, clinically dead, no pulse, no breathing, and through the acts of our team, they're at home, thriving, mentally intact and everything. So if I can get Major Milton and Hudson up here to hand out some certificates. On 4/5/23, Ashley Taylor, Captain Scott Brossecker responded to a 48-year-old male cardiac arrest after urgent care. Like I said, through their actions, person is doing well and back at home. So we would like to give them a certificate. Ashley Taylor could not be here tonight. The second 2, Tina Stamey and Field Training Officer Robert Ledbetter responded to a 59-year-old male cardiac arrest after a heart attack at home. There again, they're back. The person did well, back at home and living a life. On 5/3, Field Training Officer David Angeli and Dakota Davis responded to a 61-year-old female and cardiac arrest at home after breathing problems. And through their efforts, she survived and is back home doing well. Again, on 5/26/23, FTO Ashley Taylor and Cameron Hertung responded to a 59-year-old male firefighter fighting a vehicle fire who went into sudden cardiac arrest and through their efforts and the efforts of other firefighters on the scene, he survived, and we actually saw him today and waved at him. So, great job to y'all. 6/2/2023, FTO James Deal, Alexis Robbins, FTO Nick McCracken, and Captain Ronnie Taylor responded to a major motor vehicle collision that was involved a 5-year-old female. She was extremely injured. It's miraculous that she survived. Through their treatment on the scene and getting them to the proper facility to take care of her, she's doing well, and she's still in inpatient rehab, but looking for somewhere to go. But she's mentally intact and good to go. So we'd like to recognize those members of our staff for that. Also at this time, I'd like to introduce Major Nikki Hudson. She's going to talk to you about the American Heart Association award we've got again. So she's going to explain that to you.
We applied for and received the Mission Lifeline EMS Recognition Gold with Target Heart Attack Honor Roll Award for the 8th year running. And what that means for the citizens and visitors of Burke County is if you go into cardiac arrest or you have a heart attack or a stroke here in Burke County, more than 90% of the time you're going to walk home to your family. You're going to have a very good patient outcome, and it's because of these folks and the other 100 that we work with and all of our first responders. This is the highest honor that you can receive from the American Heart Association, and it's our 8th year running with it. So we're very proud of our folks and for the work that they do.
It's amazing that if you think back, we're celebrating our 50th year anniversary, and you know, nursing and other medical fields have been around so long, but EMS is really just a new process. So back in 1973, the funeral homes, Kirksey, namely, said that we will no longer transport the sick and injured to the hospital for you, and the county will be responsible. So what they did is throw up an EMS base behind the hospital. A couple years later, between there, a couple years, they were just roaming ambulances hung out in the hospital, such as that. So you think about 1973 and 50 years being a long time ago, but it's really not. So you can sort of go back and think about 1973. That was the time of Richard Nixon. George Foreman was the heavyweight champion. A gallon of gas was 40 cents. First class stamps, 8 cents. A gallon of milk, $1.40. A new car cost $3,200. Household income was $12,000 per year. And it's also the time of Bad Leroy Brown. The first cell phone that Motorola made was super expensive, and it weighed 2.5 pounds. Bell bottoms, mutton chops, and tie-dye, All in the Family, The Waltons, Sanford & Son, Spam, Tab, Jell-O Salad, Evel Knievel, Tonto Figures, and Shrinky Dinks. I had to ask what Shrinky Dinks were. And in October 1973, my parents gave birth to a beautiful little brand new boy. So we'll start with this presentation that we put together, and I'll be brief. Some of these people celebrating our 50th year. I'm getting old, I have to put my glasses on. Back in 1975, EMS Station 1 was built behind the hospital. Shortly thereafter, Station 2 and Station 3 were built. Station 2's in Valdez, and Station 3's in Glen Alpine. Then, in 1999, we had the Hildebrand base built, and we went into a joint venture with Jones Ridge Fire Department, pretty much letting us park a FEMA trailer in their parking lot to have a special ops paramedic up there. Since then, they've built on, and we are actually in a building up there too. But at Jonas Ridge, cold, wind, and a trailer was not ideal, to say the least. Then we added George Hill, Station 7, which is behind the senior center, and then we went down to George Hildebrand to add bases. This is actually a picture of one of our ex-medics, Jeff Weller, working at the kitchen table in the camper at Jonas Ridge. Back in 1978, we saw the expansion of the EMT role to EMT IV. For those that don't know, there's levels of certification. You start out as an EMT. Now it's advanced EMT. Advanced EMT gives some medications, and then a paramedic can give medications to slow your heart down, speed it up, paralyze you for a second while they insert a breathing tube. They can do some really advanced stuff. So back then, in 1978, we had to ask for permission over the radio to start IVs, and we were, and now we're doing it in class. It's standing orders, and then to the right you see the chicken leg. That's an interosseous needle that we actually stick in the bone if we can't get an IV now. CPR trained in 1979 was mouth-to-mouth chest compressions. Now we have automatic CPR devices. The blue device that you see with that mannequin on it doesn't just put pressure in one part of your chest, it actually squeezes the whole chest cage. 40% more blood flow to the heart. Insert breathing tubes, and our people, the bottom right with the people wearing gloves, is where they're actually dissecting pig hearts to learn heart anatomy, which is very similar to the human anatomy. Wasn't until 1983 until we started a paramedic program here in Burke County, and that came a lot of training. And now we are doing an EMS academy, which starts people out from no medical experience. We pay them to take their EMT, they start working on the truck, and then they go on to get their paramedic, and that has been a wonderful program for both us and Western Piedmont. In 1987, we had a fancy new piece of equipment added to the truck, and it was gloves. Up until then, it was a badge of honor. The bloodier you were, the better. But unfortunately, about that time, the AIDS epidemic started, and we had gloves put on our truck. I read this article where I blew it up, and Randy McKinney at the time, who was our EMS training officer, said the gloves are available, and it's up to each individual person if they want to wear them or not. Now, I mean, you can't even get out of the vehicle without wearing gloves. And then we're also in partnership with Blue Ridge to administer blood transfusions in the field now, which was unheard of back in the day. Some call volume, 1990 it was 7,700. We're probably going to break 20,000 this year, which is a huge increase. And we do other things, community paramedic program. We do that. Tina's here. She's our first community paramedic, special operations, peer, advanced medicine, tactical medicine. The CP program is really in the infancy. Tina has diverted so many needless transports and worked with social workers and stuff to get people help to where they don't have to call an ambulance, and it's really not needed. You know, it's people are more comfortable in their home receiving help in the home than it is going to the hospital trying to find help there. It's just not made for it. But she's done a great job. Special operations, those are the guys that you see hanging off the cliffs in the gorge. The right picture is of South Mountain State Park. We have two of those beautiful areas in our county, but they are can be extremely dangerous and rugged. And our team, Captain Hood's here. He's special operations team leader, and he's got a great group of people. We also respond to type water, type 2 water rescue team. We're the only one in the state that's made up of totally, at this time, EMS employees, EMS personnel. So we respond to all the hurricanes. We responded to Asheville and the western North Carolina floods. We do public education, and every Friday night we cover the football games. You'll see our trucks there, and they're always looking for our trucks pulling in, because I go to lots of football games, and everybody's looking, where's the EMS? Oh, there they are. So they appreciate that. We also do festival standby, and then events, some are paid, motorcycle standbys, rodeos, stuff like that. Captain Hood's here. He's a SWAT medic. We're the only EMS service in the state that has two SWAT medics that are also BLET trained, certified, and work with the Sheriff's Department. And he taught in the classroom teachers casualty care, Stop the Bleed, and it was really well accepted in the school system. This letter to the right, there's a story. Captain Hood was on the scene of a shooting. Unfortunately, the Sheriff's Department had to discharge their weapons on somebody that's serving a warrant on, and where the location of the gunshot was, if he would not have been there, he would have died. Major artery, would have bled out before we even got an ambulance close to him. So, already saved a life. And I just want to say thank you. My job's really easy because I have amazing employees, past and present, and they've really been the hope and come in and try to calm down a chaotic situation to our citizens in their worst times. So I'd like to say thank you to our employees. That's all I've got. Any questions or anything?
Jason, I thank each one of you. They're doing an amazing job. And I'm sure maybe some other commissioners will want to comment or two.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'm extremely grateful to every one of you, and I know those families that were mentioned, not by name tonight, are extremely grateful for you guys too. I used to have a little glimpse into the world that you live in, not nearly as sophisticated as you are today. I came in when gloves were an option. That's been a long time ago. But I do remember the dedication, the training, the heart of service that you guys have to have in order to do your job. And I would like for everybody to acknowledge the fact that your job is not a job, it's a lifestyle. It's something that you live in the morning when you get up, and it's with you when you go to bed at night. And there is no day off. If you're up at South Mountain State Park and something happens, you don't get to turn around and look the other way. You're going to engage, and you're going to do what's right by the citizens in this county. A minute ago, we gave all of you guys a standing ovation. I'd like to see us all stand up and give your families a standing ovation, because there is no way that you can do what you do without their support, and we appreciate them too.
Jason, if I could have you folks come down front, and we're going to take a commemorative photo.
Absolutely.
Please, sir. And so if y'all don't mind coming forward, just make a semicircle of commissioners. We'll get 2 on each side. And then may need some help with those, Brian. Got a little something for each of you. Anybody like to come forward, please come forward. Before they leave, I just want to, I want Kay, I know she and I worked on getting this hints and what they recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have made a 50th anniversary lapel pin honoring EMS, and we provided pins for every EMS employee to have one and to wear on their uniform during their year of celebration.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. That was fun. Okay, gentlemen, that'll bring us to item number 4 under presentations. Okay. Madam Clerk, do we need to make item number 4 in the form of a motion?
Beg your pardon?
We need to make a motion on item number 4. I've just
No,
got recognition on
that's
here, but I know on the computer it says motion. So I don't think that's necessary.
No.
Okay. Just want to clear that
Yeah.
up. Thank you, Commissioner Britton, for pointing that out. That'll bring us to item number 5, gentlemen. GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This will be presented by Brian Epley, our county manager.
Thank you,
Hey,
Mr.
sir,
Chairman.
again.
Yeah, just more positive news, and I think representation of the talented employees and good work that we have here in Burke County. We talked about this a lot pre-agenda, but there's a national oversight, kind of industry best standard body known as the Governmental Finance Officers Association, and only a select few counties in North Carolina are able to participate in their highest level of accomplishment. Burke County is one of those. And so I just want to take a brief moment and recognize Margaret and her entire team, the finance department, to obtain this level of recognition. And I think the name says it all. It is a Certificate for Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting. It is meeting the standard and exceeding it, doing it with accuracy, doing it with a professionalism and a technical competency that, quite frankly, simply is not everywhere. And so we're very proud of that entire team. A lot of hard work. I invite her up if she has a few things that she'd like to say or take questions for the board. But again, in a broader context, I think it's just another symbol of the highly talented employees and the good work that's going on in Burke County. And as we close out the fiscal year, this is just a little bit of recognition of that.
Thank you, sir. Margaret?
Only one of the staff was able to be here tonight, but I do want to really point him out and thank you for the opportunity and the staff we have to be able to do this type of reporting. To put together the 140 give or take pages is more than just printing out a report. There's a lot that goes into it. Brian Neeft, if you're not familiar with him, is one of our huge supporters of it. Brian, thank you so much. Brian does the fixed asset section, he does our insurance, he does our purchasing, keeps us contract safe and all the rules and laws you have to abide on that. But the fixed assets is a big piece for this report, along with a few other things. That's about 5 pages of notes and multiple places in the actual financial reports that his piece feeds in. Pat Lunsford does compensated absences and the payroll pieces and salary benefit balancing to go into the report. Jessica Helms does statistical section, the conversion. She works through keeping accounts payable and receivables in line so that all of that reports well into it. Other staff have pieces as well, but those are some of the really important staff that support me in getting this report done, and we really appreciate having them. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Y'all do an amazing job, and we take it for granted these numbers just show up in front of us. Gentlemen, any questions or comments?
Nothing more to say. Thank you. I appreciate all your efforts and hard work.
Thank y'all. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Y'all want to come up?
Sure.
And we'll give you a little bit of space there. All right, gentlemen, that brings us to presentation number 6. Presentation on the Community Beautification Initiative. This will be presented by Ashley Baker, our Senior Executive Assistant. How are you, Ashley?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to going over the community beautification projects that we've been working on. I've got a couple slides that I'm going to walk you through, and then I'll take some questions at the end. All right, so community beautification, when we look at this and we look at your commissioner's strategic plan, community beautification falls in focus area number 1 for community advancement. The objectives of this project is to enhance the aesthetic appeal of our community, pick up litter and trash, promote cleanliness throughout the community, and foster an engagement from community members to provide input of all these places that are filled with litter. When you think about when we think about beautification, we kind of came up with a strategy that's not only about picking up roadside litter off the side of the road or trash in the parking lot. It's a little bit bigger than that. Tonight I'm going to be talking about how we're going to get this off the ground by picking up litter, but eventually, as we get this up and running, we're going to be going through the school system, doing a campaign with the kids, and looking at landmarks and different community buildings that may need aesthetic appeal to make the community look and feel better. I worked with community development, with code enforcement, to really dive in and look at hotspots, as we called them. The hotspots we identified that we're going to start immediately on is Huffman Bridge Road. We heard Amherst Road through Courtesy Drive a lot, 64 through Antioch Road, somewhere near the landfill, Heartland Road, and we thought it would be a really good idea to circle around the convenience sites periodically because we see a lot of litter on those roads. So that's where we're going to get started. We've contracted with a team called Gold Star Project Group. They're out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. They have a solid reputation with the Department of Transportation, removing litter throughout communities or counties and cities in North Carolina, all across the state. And then the way that we are asking the community to give feedback and input is through a web page we designed on our website. Community members can come here, they can learn about the project, why we're doing it, and then we ask them to fill out this form at the bottom, give us as much information as they can regarding the areas of interest so we can get the team out there, and all the requests will be vetted and prioritized with our Gold Star team. If you go to the home page, you can see there's a little icon that says Community Beautification. So if you have members of the community calling, you can direct them here, and that'll take them to the form that will come to me. Any questions?
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, not exactly a question, it just popped in my mind. Would this be a place that maybe we could add a point for community volunteers that might be interested in helping with this kind of project, whether it's picking up trash or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. They can fill out the form, and I will take those requests and get them connected to our teams.
Mr. Chairman, I've sat in this chair for 12 years, waiting on this to happen. It's finally here. This whole crazy world we live in, a lot of times we get focused in on a lot of things that really don't mean a whole lot to us, but something as small as trash in Burke County means a lot to me. Everybody knows I go in my front yard and down to Highway 18, pick up trash every day. People kindly drive by and throw it out there so I can pick it up for them. So, but that's okay. I don't mind doing that. So I just, County Manager, I want to thank you. Actually, I want to thank you for something so small. It's this beautifying, well, it's not small. Beautifying this county is a large project. It takes a lot of people together. We have had some things out there like spay and neuter pets. We know what the result of that will be. We know what the result of this will be. I want to make Burke County, we've got so much to offer people. When we look at Lake James and when we look at the trails, but what we don't want to offer is trash laying on the side of the road. So I thank you. This is vision. This is all about advancing. I hope that people can just get together and put their minds together and focus on those things that really matter. And this is one of those things. Like I said, I've been sitting here 12 years waiting on this. And as you know, I closed out every meeting saying, pick up your trash, pick up your trash, pick up your trash. So thank you. Let's make this work. I promise you that you will have me on your team. And I will do everything I can to help you make this work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great comments, Commissioner Carswell. And this is just a great thing that we have in front of us. Just one thing, how many days a month do we have access to these folks? Just for clarity's sake.
The team is going to be going out 2 times a week to begin.
2?
2.
Okay.
So roughly 8 times a month.
Okay. That's a great start. We can definitely keep it busy. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
We're all excited. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to accept the report as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor, signify with uplifted hand. Motion carried 4-0, Madam Clerk. That'll bring us to the next item is scheduled public hearings. Community Development Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2023-07 and public hearing.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Mulvey. Members of the commission, members of the public. Before you with ZMA 2023-07, Mr. Kenneth Ross is requesting a rezoning change for his property from residential 2, R2, to general business, or GB. This property is located on Rodeo Lane, which is just below Highway 64, just south of Salem. This is a aerial view of the property itself. The property in front is also owned by Mr. Ross, and that is already zoned general business. He'd like to add this this rear tract to his land to be able to do additional commercial activities there. This is the zoning map. As you can see, there's a lot of different zoning in this area, especially along US 64, and a fair bit of it is of a commercial nature. This property here is Andy's Place, which is a convenience store. There's other properties that are zoned and have been used in different commercial fashion over many years. We always consider the future land use map, and of course the future land use map, we tend to match up with what's there, what's in place with zoning, but with this request, we note that the Blueprint Burke future land use map does support commercial uses in this area and even on adjacent properties, so we didn't feel that there would be a real conflict to switch this to a general business category should you choose to do so. More economic development is desired within Burke County, and rezoning this parcel to general business would allow the property owner to have more options for his tract there. Of course, when we have a rezoning, we take everything to our planning board, and the planning board reviewed this, this request on July 27th. They supported it unanimously. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you. I noticed that Mr. Ross is with us if you have any questions of him, but he doesn't, I don't think he wants to speak if you don't have any questions for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, we've had an opportunity to review the material. Any questions or comments, Alan? All right. At this time, I will open the floor, open the public hearing. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak to this issue? There being none, I will now close the public hearing. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I've never known Kenny to be speechless, but with that, I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 2023-14 as it relates to ZMA 2023-07, a request to rezone a .062 acre parcel of land, pin 17911172477, located on Rodeo Lane, from the residential 2 district to the general business district. Further, the board finds the rezoning to currently be inconsistent with the Blueprint Burke plan, but notes that conditions have changed because the owner is seeking to expand commercial opportunities among the 2 parcels. Furthermore, the board finds the rezoning request to be reasonable and in the public interest of Burke County for the following reasons. The Blueprint Burke future land use map supports commercial development in this area. There is general business zoning in the surrounding area, including the adjacent property. More economic development is desired within Burke County, and rezoning the parcel would allow additional commercial development.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor of the motion signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carried 4-0. Thank you, Alan. This time, we'll move to item number 8, formal public comments. Madam Clerk, is there any speakers that wish to speak tonight?
We had 2 speakers pre-register. If they are still here, Carla Kincaid.
Ms. Kincaid is not here to
Okay.
make more comments. I can give them to you or include them in my comments, whichever is the appropriate thing to do.
If you can just submit Carla's to Madam Clerk, she can forward those comments to us. And,
The next would be Mr. Sam Avery.
okay, thank you.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm standing over at 115 Riverside Court. And as I just said, I just came from the monthly meeting of the Burke Coalition for Reconciliation. Each month we like to come over and tell you what has happened at our meeting. And Ms. Kincaid was unable to come. She's here almost every month. She asked me, and I will give to Madam Clerk her comments, but it's about trust and building community. And there's so much to say just in these pages, but it really is about people talking to each other. Mr. Carson, whether it's about picking up trash or finding ways to capture tax money. People talk and things happen, and that's what this is all about. We heard a real inspiring speaker tonight. I think that all of you know, Mr. Bruce Hawkins. He came and told his story to the assembled group. I've known Bruce all of my adult life and learned a lot, and I'm amazed at the courage that leaders have to undergo, no matter who they are. Every time leadership requires courage. Bruce was born in Burke County in Berrytown. That's where he lives now. And in 1943, he was born in the segregated maternity ward at Old Grace Hospital, which was for colored boys and girls, not for men and women, but he was born there. He lived in Berrytown like most blacks lived in enclaves because there's really not much place for them to go. Businesses didn't serve them, et cetera, et cetera. And when it came time for him to go to school, he went to one of the 4 feeder schools that were in Burke County at the time that fed into Olive Hill High School. And Bruce commented, he said, I live much closer to Valdez High School or Drexel High School than I did Olive Hill High School. And I always wondered to this day, as much as I appreciated my education at Olive Hill, I wonder what it would have been like if I had gotten to go to Drexel or Valdez High. Bruce, amazingly, went to college. He didn't really want to, but a white man who was a banker in Valdez saw his potential, and Bruce got a loan to go to college. And when he came back out of college, he came back to Burke County because it was home, and he served. And you know that he was a county commissioner, and you know that he was on the school board, and he was chair of the school board. And this day, you know he's a college trustee. He's a leader who continues to step forward to try to bring people together. That's what the Burke Coalition for Racial Reconciliation is asking you to do. Bring us together. Please. Thank you.
That was it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That'll bring us to item number 9, ladies and gentlemen. Consent agenda. This will be presented by Mr. Brian Epley, our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, several items for consideration, all of which are in your packet for review. Item 1 is a resolution of support for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Starts here shortly. Item 2 is approval of budget amendment number 2 for the 23-24 year. I would point out that the presentation, the optic of that, as we discussed, has been changed. But as a reminder, that's all new grant flow-through dollars impacting soil and water, Oak Hill Park, and some adult, adoption services in the Department of Social Services. We also have reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment, item number 3. Item number 4 is a proclamation from the Fire Marshal's Office for Fire Prevention Week, October the 8th through the 14th. Item 5 from our tax department is your monthly collection report for August 2023. Item 6, also from the tax department, is your release refund report for the month of August 2023. And item 7, Mr. Chairman, is the item that was added by the board when you amended the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. I would point out that that is for the board to consider 2 items. One is to accept a late application for tax exemption for religious exclusion from East Valdez Baptist Church. Late last year, the church bought a new building, that they're using for church purposes. During the closing, there was a clerical error in which the application for exemption was not received by our tax department, erroneously creating a tax bill. As you know, that would be an exempt organization as an arm of the church. And so the request here, item number 7 on the consent agenda, is to accept the late application for East Valdez Baptist Church, and then to apply that retroactively both to the 23 tax liability and moving forward prospectively, and the just cause being the clerical error by during closing by the legal staff to not get that application to our tax office. That's moderately complicated. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but that concludes your consent agenda.
Gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Epley? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by the county manager.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 4-0. This brings us to section.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add to that motion for the church for item number 7, that was new. So the suggested motion would be to approve the release of property taxes in the amount of $3,068.80 for East Valdez Baptist Church with retroactive application supported by just cause of clerical error by the closing attorney in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 105-381 and to accept their tax exempt application.
Madam Clerk, we put that to a vote. County Attorney says yes. Thank you for the motion. Mr. Burns, all those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Those opposed? Motion carried, I believe, 4-0.
I've got a question. We just voted on it for consent agenda, and then we turned around and voted on it again. So how will that
But, hold on.
We voted
Yeah.
We voted for the consent agenda, and number 7 was part of the consent agenda. I understand we got the additional piece of paper, but it was under the consent agenda, and we already knew about this.
Clarity? Mr. County Attorney?
The additional piece of paper was to include the cause for allowing the taxes to be refunded. The statute requires that. So I think Mr. Burns was making especially sure that that we were considering the current version of the appeal and not the version that came out earlier today.
Satisfactory?
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us to item number 10, items for decision. Jonas Ridge Waste and Recycling Convenience Center project update presented by Brian Epley.
I'll be brief. The point of this presentation is to update the board. As you're all well aware, there's an ongoing capital project in Jonas Ridge, Phase 1 and Phase 2, which you'll hear about momentarily from Mr. Lyons. But I wanted to make sure that the board was fully up to speed on where that project is, and there's been a little bit of change in our scope and our path forward. So I just wanted to briefly, again, provide those updates and then take questions as the board may have. Primarily what I want to talk about is a change in procurement model and process and then timeline. As you're all well aware, this 3-acre parcel as part of a larger tract that the county owns up at Jonas Ridge is going to be dedicated to a collection site, recycling center. That was originally bid and the contract was let late last fall. Construction began in March of this year, early spring. And really we're making great progress because of some contractual issues. That project was stopped in mid to late June. And for statutory and regulatory reasons, we've had to go through a re-engagement process. And that's where that's where we are tonight. What's different as we re-engage because of the moderate amount of complexity that is with re-engaging a project, and it will be with a different, likely with a different general contractor, to reduce the likelihood of what we call a scope gap, meaning to put together a single prime bid, which we all know that's a low bid model, which is typically what we use. And for a project this size, I would say that's typically the better model and what we used for the work that's been done to this point. So you put together a bid document, contractors acknowledge they will contractually do that work for that amount of money. The challenge is, even though we've re-engaged with Site Civil Engineering Design Firm and we have stamped drawings, the likelihood of us being 100% precise with what the technical bid applications we're trying to put out there is a real challenge. And there's some risk of scope gap. So what we're recommending is to transition to a design build procurement model, which allows us to engage a builder via an RFQ. So we evaluate builders on their qualifications to deliver the project on time and on budget based on their experiences. And if approved, we have an RFQ ready to go that we would put out for a short period of time. We've very intentionally primed the market so contractors know that this is coming. We would leave it out for the minimum amount of time, which is about 7 days. So this would come, or 8 days. It would come back next Wednesday. The following Thursday, we would interview these firms. We have a selection team we put together. We would bring them in, have an interview, and then circle back to this board with a recommendation. Once a contractor was selected, they would do an initial site civil and then review of design packages, and that's where we can use that interactive process to eliminate the potential scope gap so that we don't have start-stop or contractual issues with this project through the remainder. Contract development and GMP follows that, and then construction. Here's just an excerpt out of the RFQ, but you can see that we're very transparent, and this is a partially started project that we're trying to pick back up and get going, and we think that that'll give our contractors a real opportunity to make sure that they fully understand what we're asking them to do. We identify that we're going to begin interviewing those firms next Thursday, and we're going to evaluate their competencies based on these roughly 7 or 8 characteristics that, as you can see, have to do with the procurement model and their experience in this world of construction development. An updated schedule, we believe, looks like this. If we issue this RFQ and it comes back, we think that we can award it in early October with the board's permission. That would either be a special called meeting in early October or potentially ahead of your pre-agenda meeting on October the 3rd. Sometime in that first week of October, as we all know, because of the climate and the environment at this elevation, construction is a real challenge. We're trying to get it back on. We're going to try to work to make sure that our contract can at least get a soft operational opening. Soft operational opening means that we can, that citizens up there can use the site. It may not be fully complete. The asphalt may not be down. For example, we may have crush and run or packed crushed concrete, asphalt as a base, and then have to come back when the temperature rises or whatever to do the final paving. But we would have the basic grading done, the concrete done, all of the electrical done to run the compactors, all of those critical components to open the site. We will push really hard to get that done by December. And then total substantial completion, we're targeting end of January, early February. So again, this is really just about updating the board of where we are, asking for endorsement, making sure we're on the same page with changing the procurement model from single prime to design build, and then we'll be releasing that RFQ to get some submissions back. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the report as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that carries 4-0. That brings us to the second item for decision, Jonas Ridge Cranberry Bog Design and Construction Documents Contract. That will be presented by Alan Clines. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here. The county would like to contract with Equinox Environmental Design Firm to develop that final park plan. This is phase 2 for the Jonas Ridge property. This contract would include plans for the park and construction documents for the Cranberry Bog Park at Jonas Ridge. Let's have a look at some slides here. The park development, the park planning, it does align with your focus area for community advancement, making investments in community as a place to live, work, and play, and also positioning Burke County as a community of choice. We think this fits that really well. To remind everyone about the county property, it's up on 181. Joe Poor Road is just to the bottom of this site here. It's about 16 acres. And it's of such high value from an ecological standpoint, being a rare high elevation mountain bog with native cranberry plants, that the state of North Carolina supported funds to purchase this with Clean Water Management Trust Fund money. So that rises to a high level. The original master plan was brought to you by Equinox and McGill Associates. They were selected through an RFQ process back in 2020. They presented a rough master plan. Of course, we're working with the area here for the convenience site, and so this would be, what happens with this area here. This contract that they have presented to us for your consideration would include 2 final designs to be decided upon by commissioners and the community. Also includes a jurisdictional determination of that wetland area. So the site's 16 acres, the wetland might be 10 of those acres. So that means it's highly restricted and got to be protected. So they're going to work on that process through the Army Corps and help that determination, and we're glad to have their expertise in that. We're also going to consider if we can reuse the older home on site as a kind of a small community center, maybe with restrooms, maybe with some history, that sort of thing up there. We'll get some feedback on that. And then also final design for the project itself. They'll develop construction documents, and they'll stay involved during any construction process for observation. So the contract for this fee of services is $127,000, $632, and we would request that the board approve that contract, let us move forward for these services. And I can answer any questions for you if you have any.
Thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, heard the presentation. Any questions or comments, Ryan? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board? Does the board have a pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the contract with Equinox Environmental Design for the Phase 2 plans and construction documents for the Jonas Ridge Cranberry Bog Park, and hereby direct the county manager to finalize the contract on behalf of the board, subject to review and/or revision by the county manager or county attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that motion carried 4-0. That brings us to item number 3, approval of lease for the History Museum of Burke County. Mr. Brian Epple.
Following up on some direction, as we talked about again at the pre-agenda meeting, the long history of the building that the History Museum now occupies and how it's changed hands. The Board of Commissioners received a request back in late July, early August from that board asking for some flexibility in how the building may be used. Some time ago, the building in exchange was deeded to the History Museum, which is a 501c3 nonprofit in North Carolina, for the use of public purpose to house a museum. They have found over time that the building has needed some investments, some improvements. They've also found that the cost of operating a history museum operationally is something that they wanted to find some revenue to help offset. They've wanted to use some available space that wasn't at full capacity for revenue generation to help offset some of those costs, but felt that the deed restrictions were maybe too restrictive or didn't allow that, as well as a grant that they received from the North Carolina General Assembly, roughly $100,000 that they wanted to invest into the building. We're unsure about the long-term aptitude to be able to do that. So again, I asked the Board of Commissioners to consider relaxing some of those restrictions, which was challenging to accomplish because of the Mullis component of the North Carolina Constitution, proving public purpose for deeding title of a public asset over. All of that being said, we felt like there was a more straightforward, a little simpler solution that would be for the county to retain title of this public asset and then lease it to this nonprofit for the purpose of holding a museum. So that's what we've done under the board's authorization. JR and I have worked together to prepare the deed transfer, as well as draft a very simple lease that has an initial term of 10 years at $1 per year that provides the flexibility. I've covered this with the executive director and the board chair of the History Museum. I spoke to him today and made him aware that this was on the agenda and the board would be considering it. And the action that we're looking for tonight is to, for the Board of Commissioners to endorse and approve finalizing those transactions, authorizing the county attorney and I to complete the deed transfer and to execute the lease with the History Museum Board.
Brian, thank you, sir. And thank you for working on this. Once again, it's something that we just had to revisit and fix. Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the lease between Burke County and the History Museum of Burke County as presented, and authorize the county manager to finalize and execute it on behalf of this board.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr, as well. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carries 4-0. Gentlemen, that brings us to item number 4 under items for decision, reappointments to the Burke County Planning Board. This will be presented by Alan Glatz.
Thank you. Thank you again. Our planning board, we have membership that is made up of from East Burke and several members from the western part of the county. And so they are usually on for 3-year terms and they stagger. So we were considering the reappointment of Joyce Coonahan from the west side and Sarah Chester from the west side. We were requesting that Sarah be reconsidered in 1 year. We've had a little bit of attendance issues. We've discussed that. She really wants to stay on and is clearing her schedule to be able to do that. And so Ms. Coonahan, we would ask that she be reappointed for three more years until 2026. On the east side, Mr. Brian King was brought on to serve the final 3 months of a commission that was just recently vacated by Robert Love. And so he's been on for 3 months. Normally, that he would be reappointed for a 3-year term. In the meantime, we received another application from the east side of the county from Carol Lewis, who's requesting consideration to be on the planning board as well. So the reason it's on the item of decision is to consider the east appointment for you all. So I can answer any questions if you like, and if not, you all could make a motion in support of either candidate for the east, and also if you agree with a reappointment for Ms. Coonahan and Sarah Chester. Was that clear? I hope.
I believe so. Gentlemen, questions, comments? Madam Clerk, I see on my notes, I open the floor for nominations for the seat number 3 East. Is that necessary?
You have 2 applicants, Mr. Brian King or Carol Lewis.
Do we need to open the floor for any other nominations? It's just written on my notes.
That's normally what we do when we have more than 1 applicant for a seat.
Okay.
But
Just for clarity's sake.
Yes.
If that's what the precedent is, that's what we'll do. Well then, gentlemen, I will open the floor for nominations. We have any nominations for seat number 3 from the floor?
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Brian King.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. Gentlemen, any other nominations? Then I'll close the floor for nominations. Gentlemen, we have a motion to, from Commissioner Britton to appoint Mr. King to seat number 3 East. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Motion carried 4-0. Thanks for clarity on that.
Mr. Chair, I'll also move to reappoint Joyce Coonahan to seat number 7 for a 3-year term ending September 30, 2026, and to reappoint Sarah Chester to seat number 4 to the Burke County Planning Board for a 1-year term ending September 30, 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor of the motion signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, motion carried 4-0. Thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, we come to reports and comments. This is a presentation of the end-of-year report presented by Mr. Brian Epley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each of you have in front of you your fully delivered end-of-year report, which is intended to be really serve 2 purposes. One is to be really a synopsis of how we concluded the fiscal year. As you all know, June 30th was the end of our business year, and so now we're in that kind of 90 days beyond, and we've started to we're ready to issue financial statements. And typically it would be much later in the year when counties are presented their audit, and that's when a lot of boards and a lot of staff are first seeing how they concluded. I think our sophistication here is a little bit higher. We've been able to deliver and finalize those in a way that we can get those to you sooner, and we all know the sooner we have information, the better our decision making can be. The second priority, the second goal of this report is to provide an update on your strategic plan initiatives. And I'll say my first, after arriving in February, been here roughly 7 months, tonight's meeting is a microcosm in the robustness of simply the agenda and all the things that we're advancing and moving forward tonight. I hope it's also captured in that report. Although I was only here for the back half of the fiscal year, it was indeed a successful, productive, advancing year for Burke County, something we all should be proud of. As we've talked about many times over the last 6.5, 7 months, we want to be known for advancing. We want to be known for high performing, being a high performing local government. And that means lots of things. It means, number one, we start with clear priorities, and your strategic plan, which you adopted back in March, has been, continued to be, that priority setting tool for staff and all things that we do, including resource allocation. We believe that high performance is culture. It becomes a consistent norm, something that we expect to do. And with your leadership and support, I think that we're on our way to accomplish that. The biggest thing about that is being clear about priorities and allocating our resources in a way that advances those goals. Something as simple as community beautification, which is a huge goal we talked about tonight, for example, requires resource allocation. And resources are people, time, and money. And we think that we moved that needle towards a culture of high performance through investing in people, infrastructure, and technology. And that's what we've really been trying to do. I think that's how we closed out June 30, 2023. And I think that's what you'll see in your report. This report is a further commitment to communication. I think high-performing teams self-reflect. I think they measure outcomes. I think they communicate at a high level. And that's what we've tried to do. When you look at our level of communication, both from a policy directive perspective from the Board of Commissioners and a staff communicating up, really pretty much there's a fluid and a perpetual effort throughout the year, starting with your work session back in the spring, moving through the budget process, now in September, this end of the year report. And then as we advance towards December, January, we'll be providing the board an update as a mid-year synopsis of how we're performing in now the 23-24 fiscal year. So I'll start, and I'll move through these quickly, but I'll start with fiscal stewardship. As you know, a big part of what I wanted to touch base on was how we concluded the year financially. I think that is a good predictive analytic for the other things we're going to be able to accomplish. As Burke County knew some time ago, it's very difficult to accomplish anything if you don't have the resources needed to do that. So we'll talk just briefly about how we finished the year financially, some key ratios, and how our debt looked like. Our revenue portfolio was made up of about 96.9, right at $97 million last year. Property tax, sales tax, and restricted intergovernmental continue to be our three largest revenue sources. This is new, out of the brand new map book, which Commissioner Carswell, Mr. President, has provided us all a copy. We remain the 83rd moving into this year. I know that's a little bit difficult to see, but we remain the 83rd lowest tax levy per capita. So I think that's important to keep in mind, all the things that we're able to advance. There's only 16 counties in North Carolina that do it for a lower property tax per capita. Very proud of our tax collection, tax administration team. John and his team continue to really look for opportunities to do better at what they do in revenue collection, and obviously at 55% of our total revenue portfolio, they fund and advance a lot of our goals. Concluded last year at 98.6%. I would point out, as we transition from 23 to 24, we now have at 56 cents the 28th lowest. Not only are we the 83rd lowest tax levy per capita, we have the 28th period lowest tax rate in the state of North Carolina at 56 cents. A quick glimpse at our top 10 taxpayers. So you can see those here. Those top 10 equate for about $400 million in total revenue, and they pay a combined $2.6 million in property tax revenue. That's roughly, that $413 million is roughly 5.5% of our total tax base. We concluded about $7.9 billion last year, and that $2.6 million is roughly 2.7 cents of our revenue collection. Sales tax continues to perform at a really solid, predictable clip. Chairman Mulvey and I were in a TDA meeting earlier today, and we talked about the trends in the economy where savings have diminished, spending has remained high, and at some point there's going to be a correction. So this year is another year that we were able to benefit from growing sales tax, which is driven by consumer spending. As we all know, a couple Fridays ago, this board took action jointly with the school board to change how that will be allocated moving forward. But this is an optic just of total collections. And the takeaway that I would say is when we look at all of the articles, 39, 40, and 42, all trending up, it simply tells us that there's energy in our economy, right? It tells us, so what's unique here, Article 40 and 42 are distributed on a per capita basis, meaning that's all sales tax collections from across the state, and then they're redistributed to counties in North Carolina based on your percentage of population. And Article 39, which is on the right-hand side, is strictly a point of sale article. So when both of those are going up, it says that there's not only energy in our state, that we're benefiting from the growth in Raleigh and Greenville and Charlotte, but there's also energy and expansion in our local economy, and that's a good indicator of how we're performing. Another good indicator of our both organizational performance and local economy is development energy. So how many pieces of property are now being used that require rezoning, or how many permits are we issuing to keep up with the development code? And as you can see, both on the single family side and the permits for renovations, we're continuing to see a high level of volume there, which translates to high fees. In both building inspections and planning and zoning, our departments inside of our organization have at least some component of cost recoupment through a fee structure. Certainly that doesn't cover the full cost of the service, but when we have high energy, it tells us about our economy, but it also helps to provide a revenue source, a funding source to our budget. And as you can see, a little bit blurry on the screen there, but both were higher in the last fiscal year than in previous years. Something that I'm really proud of, and I think that we need to make sure that we fully understand and appreciate, is obviously rates have increased. Nobody knows that, Mr. Chairman, better than you, which has led to a more friendly investment economy, our market. But this year, our team was able to strategically build out in a very limited area where we can invest. The North Carolina Fiscal Control Act is very strict on where you can put public money, as you can imagine. No hedge funds, no futures, right? We're talking U.S. Treasuries, money markets, basic low-risk investments. But when you When you have a good understanding of how you can most leanly run your organization, not keeping more cash on hand than you need, and you're investing the other and putting it into work, we were able to grow investment income from $63,000 in FY22 to $1.4 million in FY23. That is not rates, that is strategy. And $1.4 million is more than a penny on the tax rate. So that was able to keep our tax rate a cent lower, and that's how we get to that 28th lowest in the state of North Carolina. We also, at the direction of this board, have very aggressively pursued grants. We have approval pending on tick over $20 million worth of grants that will advance your strategic plan. We've been awarded and are currently managing 21 unique operational grants that add up to about $5.6 million. So again, all of these being used instead of local money to advance our goals. EMS is another department that allows for some type of cost recoupment through a fee structure. Last year we collected about $5.4 million. Down a little bit from 22. Transports were down, hospitalizations were high. In 22, that was an industry average, primarily because of COVID, so a lot of people moving in and about, which generated transport revenue. What I would say is, as we move into 23, I think this is an area that we can, a term that I like to use is revenue maximization. Our cost per transport, our revenue per call, I think that we can get that a little bit higher. Currently, we have a contract with a company that does our billing for us, and that's something that our budget and performance team is evaluating. Is should we continue to outsource that, or is that something that we think we can maximize that revenue, which is all coming through Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurance, to help again provide a higher level of revenue to offset the cost of a very, very expensive department, but as we all heard tonight, celebrating their 50th year with multiple examples of saving people's lives, critically important to our mission. As you all know, our debt portfolio is unmatched in the management. When you compare this nationally, when you compare this across the state, it's really unprecedented at what type of financial health this organization has, especially when taken in contrast with the low debt burden. The chart on the left here is showing that following 2026, for 2 years out, basically our annual cash outflow, our debt service burden will essentially be cut in half. And what's most impressive is our 10-year payout, which is a ratio that measures what percentage of your debt will be paid off over the next 10 years, when we all know that the average term for any debt issuance is typically 20 plus years. We'll be at 100%. So the debt burden is exceptionally low, which gives us the nimbleness, again, to invest into some innovative and creative strategies. We've talked a little bit about, this is just an excerpt from Moody's. They annually issue Redders reports, and so we use their words, not ours. A strong credit position, robust financial position, light debt. The challenges that we have is we need to continue to grow our economy. We've talked about that. We've had some population challenges. We've had some workforce challenges. We need some, our tax base concluded last year at $7.9 billion. When you compare that to some of our other counties, and a lot of that's because it simply isn't taxable. It's owned by the federal government, it's owned by the state. We know that, but we also want to continue to kind of push that needle and look for ways to increase that median income and some of those socioeconomic drivers. I think this is the sum it up slide for financial performance. We concluded the year at 32.8% unassigned fund balance, and that's with doing 2% mid-year raises, transitioning all the projects that we got up and running. We had what I would call a strategic drawdown in fund balance, and it was about 0.5 point. The policy that the board approved, which is still, when you talk to people like S&P and Moody's and the local government commission, the policy you all adopted is to stay above 25%. So clearly we're there. And I'll also point out the market has declined too. If you see our peer average there, it's dropped down to 20.8. That's COVID money running out. That's what that is. So our expenditures total about 96. We'll take over 96 million. You can see the breakdown there. We've talked about this functional allocation many times. But over time, what we've seen is managed incremental growth, putting money in strategic places so that you don't have these explosions and volatility in our budget, which gives us a higher level of sustainability and management over time. Health and Human Services, almost 28% of our budget, so a big part. Are certainly they between the two of them equate to about 40% of our total FTE headcount. we track not only their total budget, but what percentage of that needs to come from local money. As Commissioner Britton knows, social services is a department where we administer state and federal programs, so we spend money, and are oftentimes a certain percentage of that comes back to us, but a good measurement of our efficiency and effectiveness is what percentage of the total budget needs to come from local dollars. We also know that we don't control the demand. That is often driven by the market. We know we're expecting Medicaid expansion. We've done some things to be prepared for that as we closed out last fiscal year. But currently we're at about 31.6% of our population is Medicaid eligible. That's continuing to grow. We've had stability in our personnel, which is going to help us really, I think, leverage some institutional knowledge and have some momentum there. And same on the public health side. I think that the most compelling optic for that is what we spend per person. And we I think because of some innovative strategies and some partnerships with UNC Blue Ridge, that we're able to keep that cost substantially lower than our peers on a per capita basis. And they just do an exceptional job. Water and sewer, I won't dive in here too much. We all know, I know it's a priority of the board. It's certainly a priority of the manager's office to look for opportunities to expand that service and to provide water sewer more effectively across Burke County, whether we are the vehicle that does that or if that's better done somewhere else. But you can see our customer base can remain consistently flat. The chart on the left, the blue bar, shows our total number of water customers. The orange is the total number of sewer customers. So that expansion hasn't been happening. We haven't been trying to grow our customer base, which has led to sustained operating losses in our water sewer fund, as we all know and have talked about. This past year, it was a little bit closer. So the blue on the right-hand side, the blue is our revenue for the year, and the orange is our expenditures on the year. So we moved that closer this year. We, as you all know, are looking for a consulting agreement with AIA, and we're going to do some rate stabilization and business model analysis in that. And we think that we can get that even closer in the current fiscal year that we're in. Solid waste is the exact same story. You can see this is a bigger gap than what we had this year. Still not exactly where we want it. There's a lot of questions we've got to answer there too. Ahead of next budget season, as we know, contract renewals are coming from our third-party hauler and those type things that we're working on. But at this point, at least we've normalized the conversation. We know our data, and we have plans in the works to try to get that in a more appropriate level. Here was just some information that as we evaluate business models, some of the data sources that we're trying to consider, types of material, and when it comes in. How do we, if the expenditure side of our budget is the side that's needing maybe some fine tuning, understanding what types of material and when they're coming may help us craft hours of operation and staffing models and those type of things. So I just put those in there as an example of areas that where we closed last year, but also areas that we're evaluating. Risk management is a huge part of our budget. Between workers' compensation, property and liability insurance, and our employee wellness fund, you're talking about $10 million a year, and it's all about how do you manage your exposure. Workers' comp, we had a really good year. Obviously, there's some things outside of our control there, but we concluded the year at about $475,000, down from almost $700,000 the prior year. And on the property and liability side, as you all know, we are a member of the Association Risk Pool, and insurance, as we all likely know, the premiums are simply going up. They are simply going up. The cost of providing that risk management is through the roof. As Chairman Mulvey and I attended the meeting, and we were told of the three national carriers, the average increase was 33% last year, including the East Coast, which was subsidizing wildfires on the West Coast, which is moderately hard to wrap your head around. But we spent at the end of last year about $498,000 on property and liability. And for an organization of our size, $100 million budget, that is good exposure reduction for a fair cost. One thing that I'm very excited about is our employees wellness fund. These are our average monthly costs. So if you take that times by 12, that's what we're spending in claims, and then you have the administrative costs and those type of things. But to say that over the last 3 years we've remained flat in a period of rising medical inflation If you had a procedure done 2 years ago and you got the same procedure done today, it costs more. So for us to be spending, basically the same amount of money would show really an inverse relationship to that. And I think it's indicative of our team, at least I'm hopeful, and we'll get some more data as we move through next spring and do biometrics, that we're making good behavioral health choices, and that we have a culture of workplace wellness. Because that's certainly what the data would suggest. Lastly, before I move on, just a brief summary of capital improvement programs. We all know many of these projects are already underway. We talked about some of them tonight. Roughly $63.5 million in capital that we were able to get off the ground and at least moving in some way as we close out the year. I'll touch briefly on your other four focus areas as a matter of strategic plan update. We talked about community beautification earlier tonight. As you all know, we were, I think 2 meetings ago, we talked about our broadband expansion and the fact that there's $6.2 million of state and private money going into fiber expansion in Burke County right now. It touches about 1,800 new homes. The CAB program, we are one of the first 5 counties in North Carolina, thanks to you all and Mr. President for advocating. Burke County is literally one of the first 5 counties in North Carolina that will participate. And we will be working with board members over the next 2 to 3 weeks to start identifying how CAB may be implemented in Burke County. We are engaged with Bowen National Research for a housing study. If there's one commonality that I think that we all know as a matter of public policy, housing is a real challenge to population, to workforce, to inflation, all of those things. And we're hopeful that some of this data will give us the ability to develop some innovative strategies that may help offset some of those. And then lastly, this commitment to education funding. I thought that the young lady's presentation tonight about for every dollar invested in education, what that produces was so synchronized with the policies that this board has set. In economic growth, earlier this year we were able to finalize an agreement with the Hickory Airport. As you all know, that over the last 3 or 4 years, the original agreement grew that personal property tax base from 30 million to well over 100 million. And it's those innovative decisions that again takes pressure off the tax rate by growing the base. And I was very, very pleased that we were able to get that done. This building feasibility analysis, that's something we'll talk more about, but we were able to get that off the ground and move that forward. Commissioner Britton and I both are active with BDI on that board, and that'll be a partnership with them to hire a consultant to evaluate our workforce, our traffic flow, our logistics, all of those type of indicators, and help drive the decision, at least some of the questions about what is a speculative industrial shell building feasibility in Burke County. And then lastly, we've talked quite a bit about this utility AIA infrastructure analysis, and really that along with the building and the housing analysis all fit together hand in glove. But again, areas of your strategic plan that we were able to get traction on as we closed out the 23 fiscal year. Public safety and funding, performance benchmarking, opioid initiative, that's what I'm going to talk about briefly on this area. I'll be brief because the board, obviously, you guys have seen this data many, many times. But we still have, as we know, that 83rd lowest per capita tax levy, the 28th lowest tax rate. Cause and effect is real, and at times that's led to some less competitive funding in some of our most critical areas. Here you can see us compared to our peers, both sheriff and from a per capita and a total funding perspective. Same for detention. And the reality is we're getting high performance results and outcomes at a lower cost per unit, which speaks to our efficiency and our effectiveness. Over time, it's likely that investment will need to grow. But so far, and as we closed out last year, you can see kind of where we finished. Our EMS department, where the blue line there is about a $7.9 million investment. Peer counties around us are about $1 million higher than us. And you can see how that pans out from a peer comparison as well. And lastly, on opioid, I know that's a huge part of the Board of Commissioners' strategic plan. Total today, we have about $1.7 million in a reserve fund as we continue to receive those. And we want to make sure that we, obviously, Mr. Scalise in the Public Health Department is leading a team. He's serving at a national level, but also leading a local team. We're pairing that with this community paramedic program. And I think that we have the the grant request into the state for the Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Center, and I think that Burke County is leading in many ways, and I'm certainly glad to be a small part of it and try to advance the board's policy as it relates to reducing overdose deaths, reducing poisoning deaths, reducing substance abuse in Burke County. We also, in our emergency management office, I'm glad Mr. Willis is here, updating our COOP plans, that's continuity of operations, and our emergency operation plan. Those are two things that we've identified as priorities. And in your budget, you were able to allocate some additional staffing for our sheriff's department, which is, at time, comparatively speaking, been highly understaffed. And then lastly, this area of employer of choice, we've tried to focus really on culture, making sure that we're benchmarking and then modernizing our human capital systems. And the outcome there has been we've seen a better than anticipated reduction in turnover and commitment to staying and being a part of our team. This is a now number, not a June 30th number, but it wasn't far off from that. And so we're looking at that on a calendar year perspective. But overall, the story is we invest into our people in innovative ways and give them some reason to believe in a purpose bigger than themselves, and that we're investing in them, and we can do it without breaking the bank. Here we're showing our total spend. The blue bars are our total spend for our 941, which is total organizational payroll cost. And as you can see, the average employee, the line, part of this graph is showing what the average wages for the average employee is. And we're able to turn that north without growing the overall spend in a non-sustainable way. And I think that is a big part of that commitment to our people. And I applaud the Board of Commissioners for taking that leadership approach. When we talk about modernizing our human capital systems, there's a lot going on with our people. This is not the most optically pleasing slide, but we have a comprehensive pain classification study that's in progress. You guys can look down the slide and see there's just a lot of momentum as it relates to investing in the people and making Burke County the place where people choose to come to work and stay. I'll leave you with this. I tried to think of one slide that may summarize everything that we've accomplished together since February, and really that the organization accomplished even before I arrived, going all the way back to July of 2022. And I think that as we've talked about, we've focused heavily on purpose, we've focused heavily on our people, and we've focused heavily on our infrastructure. And I think in the past I can make an argument that at times our purpose was unclear and siloed, and we're working on clarifying that. We're working on unifying our team because that's going to make the biggest impact in our community. Our people, I think I could make an argument that they felt at times undervalued and disengaged. And I think because of some of the turnaround we've seen, I think that they're starting to feel acknowledged. And then lastly, our infrastructure was overlooked. And now not that we necessarily have a plan to fix it tomorrow, but we're at least talking about making needed investments that start to correct some of those challenges, whether that's buildings, whether that's water sewer infrastructure, whether that's rolling stock. All of those, I think, compartmentalize into that infrastructure component. Mr. Chairman, that's a lot of slides. I apologize. I know I moved quickly. I know board members want to take their reports back and read it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions now and moving forward about the data that you have.
Brian, do you want to introduce your budget team that's been working on this with you? Because
Sure.
what y'all have done in a short amount of time, not short of fantastic. So
the short story is everybody here pretty much, other than Sharon, who worked on it. Although you're welcome to work on it, you're a great writer. Lucas Jackson, the newest members of our team who the board may have not had the same level of exposure to. Lucas Jackson, our budget performance and manager, and Hugh Sando, who y'all met, is also in that department. Ashley, who spoke earlier, had a big role in our report. But the reality is all the members of our team in some way contributed. The data that we compiled, the analysis that we did, the strategy that we're trying to put together does not simply come from the manager's office. As a matter of fact, very little of it comes from the manager's office. I've been so pleased not only with the support and the endorsement of the Board of Commissioners, but with the commitment from the team to be self-aware and to reflect and to buy into getting better. That has really been so I could not have asked for more, and I think this report is indicative of that.
Thank you, Mr. Epley. Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none,
No, I do have a comment. Brian, I'd be remiss if I didn't come back to your report here on page number 2 and talk about one prophetic, just paragraph that says, I truly believe that each of us must find meaning in our work. And the best work happens when you know that it's just not work, but something that will improve other people's lives. It makes me think again, I hope that we, and I don't think that we ever will, lose sight of what we were elected for. And that was to make people's lives much better. That's what Burke County government does. I know there are some people that don't see it that way. They don't see it the way that we see it. It's all about advancing. We see that vision. And we ask you to take our vision and turn it into a strategy, which your team did. Thank you, team. It's Team County, just like it's Team Green and Team County Green when we go to the association, but it's Team County here. And each one of you play a critical part. It helps us to be better commissioners up here when we know that we've got a team behind us that takes this and says we've got to find meaning in what we do. I hope we never lose sight of that. We have to kind of feel better about it some days, because some days it's not pretty, you know, so we just have to take another look at it. I'm not going to be bullied. I've sat up here for a good while. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to take these little petty things that are out there. It's not worth our time. They're too small. It's just not worth the time that you have to put to it. You can let other people fix those things. We need to put our eyes on what the future of Burke County is going to be and what we can do for these lives. Like I said, there's just a lot of things that you mentioned up here that we need to work on. And we spent a number of years working on those things. But now we have a plan. Now we have a strategy. And it just gives me so much hope for what we can do in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
extremely well said. Amen. Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I move to accept the report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that carries 4-0. This time, I'm going to move on to reports and comments. I'm going to open the floor and start with Margaret Pierce.
No comments tonight, thank you.
JR, Mr. County Attorney.
No comments tonight.
Madam Clerk.
No comments, thank you.
Mr. Epley. Mr. Burns.
Just one quick comment, and I know we talked about this in pre-agenda, but I think it bears repeating, that we are exceptionally proud of Commissioner Carswell and his recent appointment as president of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. This is going to give us a much louder voice in Raleigh, and it's going to open doors for opportunity for us, and I appreciate the dedication that it took to get there. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Extremely well said. Mr. Britton.
Nothing other, I would like just to thank the board for their concern for Cynthia during her recent quick hospitalization and surgery. So she does appreciate your thoughts and your concerns. Thank you.
We're glad she's well. Mr. Carswell.
I do want to take another minute to thank all of y'all that came to see Dr. Stephen Lloyd over at COMA, who made a great presentation on the opioid problem that not only exists in Burke County, that exists all over the United States of America. Dr. Lloyd just gave a heartfelt speech. The man does an exceptionally good job. I'm proud that I know him. I'm almost to the point where we can call each other friends. I will be sitting with him on another panel in Washington DC in January. I look forward to being with him there to present his, make a second presentation to the National Association of Counties. I will be, in October, I will be going to somewhere down east, not East Carolina, but East Tennessee, not East Tennessee, something for college down there, Elizabeth City. Elizabeth City State.
Elizabeth City State,
I'll be
yeah.
going to Elizabeth City State, making a opioid presentation to their group of down there, and I can't remember the whole name of it, but I was invited the first week after we finished up in Raleigh to come down and be on a panel for an opioid presentation down there, so I'm very, very proud of that. We will, again, we'll be working with the National Association of Counties. I spoke to the president last week, and that's where we will begin my initiative, is through NACO. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we're really looking forward to that. Again, I'm just very proud that we're doing a little bit of something about the trash, whether some people like that or not. It's been a long, long time just to talk about something like that. I am so proud to see a little building sitting down at the Highway 18 convenience site. Isn't it just so beautiful to see a bathroom? It's great that those guys can go to a bathroom. And every time I go in there now, they hug me. So it's a great thing, that we did just that little thing for these people down there, so they wouldn't have to sit in an outhouse in the wintertime. So this is just amazing work. I'm bubbling tonight. I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud. Yeah. And going to the college this afternoon, our chairman just made a well of a speech. It was just grand to see that nice building over there. And Randy Burns, I'm finally glad you got some recognition for your idea. We talked about that how many years ago? Been a long, long time ago. And you finally got the recognition, well deserved, for your thought process of what needed to happen in Burke County. I'll stop. We're getting late.
Oh, amen, brother. Keep going. But no, I'm proud of every one of you out in the audience that we get to work with every day. Like we said, we don't want to gush too much, but I'm also very proud of my fellow county commissioners who I've worked with in one form or another for many, many years. And as you can see, we are friends and we're supportive and we're proud of each other. And so, and we're all very busy folks. We're all going in a lot of different directions, and but we split that up, and so we all take on assignments to help each other out. And I do want to wish Commissioner Smith well. He has been sick for the second time in about a month, really sick. So we'll keep our thoughts and prayers for him to heal quickly. And I do want to say as well, that was a great turnout at the Regional Skills Trade Building today. And really proud of what we committed to that, $1 million to that project, which anchored up a ton of money, where I think the final on the building was around roughly $7 million. The next phase on that is going to be actually where we go in and build the houses inside the next phase, which is going to be a big bay. Randy helped design this, by the way. He could probably describe it a lot better than me. But no, it's a great day, another groundbreaking. As I mentioned today, I mentioned again, Burke County's moving forward. We're talking about all advancing, and we got the Burke Business Park under development. We've got over $130 million investment for our biggest private employer, being the healthcare system. We've got projects going on at the school. We've got projects going on at the college, and we've got projects. You've seen our capital investment plan. This county's never been in better shape or has a better capital investment plan in every facet of any way you look at it, public and private. And there's a reason for that. It's the hard work behind the scenes. And it's not just us, school board, Western Piedmont, our private employers, BDI. There's a lot of partners out there. And if you were fortunate enough to hear the guest speaker today, she mentioned her admiration for how well and cohesive that all these partners collaborate with one another, and that takes a long time to develop, and these are the fruits of our labor. I will say, also, we're talking about, Elizabeth City's a little farther to drive, by the way. I got to go to New Bern tomorrow, so I'm going to have to get up early. But, Brian, Mr. Epley, I mentioned the Wrist Pool Group, and so I represent us and represent the state, and we have roughly 70 counties in that Wrist Pool Group, but we're also affiliated with, I think it's 24 or 27 other states, and so to lower our liability cost. And so I'll be heading to New Bern in the morning for several days to represent us. And so, that being said, gentlemen, a couple of courtesy reminders. September 23rd, Morgan and Public Safety's bike rodeo from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Come on out to Catawba Meadows with your bikes to learn about and practice bicycle safety on their course. They'll also be giving away bike helmets, which is cool, while they last. September 28th, the Read to a Dog event is being held at the Morgan Public Library, where kids can choose a book to read to the dogs that are available for adoption through the animal shelter from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. October 3rd will be our Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting at 3 p.m. October 5th, got a lot going on, folks. The Register of Deeds office is hosting their annual special wedding event of the year. Really cool thing they've been doing for several years now. On Thursday, October 5th, 2023, that'll be from 1 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Wedding ceremonies will be held outside in the courtyard under the big oak tree this year. This year's event will be Window to My Heart, which will be a rustic farmhouse inspired theme. There are 14 slots for $90. So if you're ready to get married, this is a good time to do it, which includes the cost of the marriage license, certified copy of the marriage license, and the officiant services. And I also want to remind everyone, as I mentioned earlier, after Animal Services presentation, spay and neuter your pets, foster, adopt a pet from Burke County Animal Services, who do an amazing job. And as Johnny has preached for years, and we listened to the presentation today, I just remind everybody, as far as litter, cover your loads to the convenience centers and the landfill, please. And please don't litter. And if you see trash, do us all a favor and please pick it up. And that's all I have, gentlemen. I will turn it over to Madam Clerk for vacancy announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have the following opportunities for citizens to be involved in county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committees, City of Morganton for the Planning Board and ETJ, let me try that again, City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ areas, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, the East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board, Council on Aging, Burke County Board of Health, the Hickory Regional Planning Commission, and the Drexel Planning Board ETJ alternate.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And is anybody watching on YouTube that has time or an interest that wants to get involved with their community in any way, call Kay. She will absolutely put you to work. And so, gentlemen, there is a need for closed session, so we will need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.118, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And do we have a motion, gentlemen? What's the pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. And we will take a quick 3 or 4 minute break as necessary, and then we'll meet in closed session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We had a proper motion to come out of closed session, and the board took action authorizing the county manager and county attorney to finalize a real property transaction. Gentlemen, we have no more further business. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor signify with the uplifted hand. I think I'll do two. That is 4-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you.